I hadn't been on a ship since my dad's little long-lining boat was seized and sold after his death, and it had been a decade since I'd ridden anything gas-powered. But I hardly had the time to think about any of it while crossing over to the mainland because I was so busy, one, vomiting, and two, trying not to be vomited upon. The ship had sails in addition to engines, and there were all these fit, handsome guys with the wind-reddened cheeks running around doing sailor stuff. I gathered the boat was usually a fishing vessel, but all its nets or whatever had been offloaded to make room for the 50 of us, pressed almost up against each other in a teeming mass of seasickness. The endless of the the endlessness of the voyage made it utterly obvious that no zombie could ever row across the ocean, but no one mentioned it. I wondered whether we just constitutionally trusted our government, or whether there was something inside of us that wanted to fight, that wanted to take back our warm land where you lay on the beach in your underwear and sunburns like every day is August. Or maybe we just wanted to kill those who'd killed so many of us. Or maybe we just want the government wanted more land so that we could eat more food and live more comfortably. I like it in the books. I like it in books when people just want one thing. They want to marry off their daughter to an aristocrat, or they want to get into a special university that never accepts members of their social class, or they want to convince the girl they loved way back when that they should have never married the other dude in the first place. But nobody ever really has one want or one motive. Really, all the motives are convoluted and complicated, and no one ever knows for sure why anyone, especially oneself, does anything. Which is the other thing I was thinking about as I heaved bile over the rusted railing of the fishing boat. Here I was, headed for the mainland, with no trust in the government or of country I agreed to fight for. I wondered why I had done it, why I had taken the uniform and put it on, and signed intake forms and held up my right hand while swearing allegiance to banks and humanity as we know it. While I had agreed to get in the boat without saying goodbye to my mother, maybe in the end motivation wasn't so complicated. Maybe in the end we did the things we did because we were told to do them. And all our little decisions that felt so momentous were really just instants of swimming either against or with the current. Neither of which, of course, mattered in the end, because the current, in the fullness of time, will take you where it's going. Maybe in the end, we were just being dragged around by our nature, like the Z's were. I wondered what it would be like to kill such a creature, post-person? Anyway, I got to find out eventually. My platoon consisted of 4 people, led by Captain Angelina Morrison, aged 28, a native Canadian who'd signed up about 4 hours longer than me, and therefore got to be an officer. The other members of my platoon were Abe and an Indian girl named Hannah. She was 16 and very quiet, which of course meant that Abe talked to her constantly. Our second morning on the mainland, the 4 of us ate breakfast of half a chicken egg, and a piece of some smoked moose. You were born on Banks? Hannah nodded. You live in town? We live up north a bit. Your family traps? She nodded. You like it up there? She shrugged. I'm a med student myself, born in Banks, and my parents. Live in town, just a couple blocks from downtown actually. It's a nice neighborhood, but I'm like spitting distance from Caroline here, who has been my best friend since. Might gain some weight if you ever stop talking to eat, Private, said Captain Morrison. Ma'am, yes ma'am, he said, taking a forkful of eggs, which is his entire serving, and piling it into his mouth. Like so many boys, Abe was not blessed with particularly attractive table manners, and so when the scooping forkful of eggs only halfway made it into his mouth, he shoved the rest in with his hand. So charming, I said, whereupon he proceeded to chew his mouth aggressively, terrifyingly open. Our job the first 3 weeks was mostly to sit around the base camp and train, which meant passing around a few guns and learning how to clean and shoot them, and then practicing digging holes and setting snare traps. I trapped with my dad as a kid, and Hannah knew all about trapping, so we were at the top of our class. Abe struggled like the science nerd he deep down was, and Captain Morrison mostly just ordered us around. She was pretty stuck up about everything, always making us call her captain and whatnot. Sometimes we'd sent our little training missions to learn how to use our compasses or whatever. We'd venture a few miles into the tundra, and once all the way into the tree line, where I saw first evidence of struggling corn plants, frozen and unharvested, but no one ever saw Aziz. And then we received orders to ship out. We were among the first scouting crews to be sent down into the wilderness, only a radio to connect us to base, and our compass to the radio in our position. We were to look for Z's, observe their social hierarchies, attempt to get a deeper understanding of what might be pushing them north, whether it was population pressures or a sincere desire to expand into the Arctic. The day before I left, I received a letter from my mom. Caroline, I love you. I am sorry. I am very, very sorry. And I can only hope to God that you are reading this. Throughout my life, I had tried to do the right thing, and here I am, done wrong. But never more so than now. And you and your brother are the only unambiguously good things I've ever made. My beloved, and you must stay safe. You must above all stay safe. Do not be a hero. Do not volunteer to go to the bush. Return home so that you can grow into a better woman than your mother. And if God forbid you find yourself scouting, dig a hole, no matter what, every night. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Mom. We set off marching. We dug a hole in the first night, hacking through the permafrost in the late afternoon Arctic. We set off marching. We dug a hole the first night, hacking through the permafrost in the late afternoon Arctic March darkness. But even after 3 hours, our foxhole was barely big enough to fit 4 of us to crouch in. The next morning, we began to walk at 8, and after a few hours, we found ourselves in and among the forest. A terrifying place full of shadows and trees thicker than I thought possible. So many apartments could be built with this wood, so many hearts could be kept warm. And it's just stood here, doing nothing. It made me understand that the rapacious hunger of humans and the bees, how they slashed and burned so much of the world, and how they half covered the world in corn before the Z's showed up to finish the job. As we marched, Captain Morrison tried to keep us silent, but Abe wouldn't stop talking to Hannah in the hopes of making her open up. He believed this about people, I guess, that they all have a story to tell, and he wanted everyone to have a chance to tell it. It was his greatest generosity, I suppose, but it was also crazy annoying. You don't, live in an igloo, do you? No, that's a myth. Yeah, I figured, but I love the idea of an igloo, you know? The idea that ice can save you from ice? I guess. Do you have a boyfriend? No. There was a pause there. I sensed a definite pause. Caroline, did not you hear the brief hiccup in Hannah's voice when asked about the... I think that's probably none of your business. And also, if we die because Z's heard you asking Hannah about her private life, I'm going to kill you. But in the hypothetical you just posited, I'm already dead. I will double kill you. But you're dead also. I don't mean to belabor the point, but a dead person killing another dead person is a terrible idea for my consequence. If you were to say you'd haunt me or try to prevent me for entry into hypothetical postmodal paradise... Shut up, Private, Captain Morrison said. Ma'am, yes ma'am, answered Abe, dejected. And then we walked on in silence. We walked for 2 weeks, due south, radioing in every day what we'd seen. Some plants, tightly bunched in crooked rows, once evidence of a campfire, albeit cold and rained upon. Each day, I hoped they might tell us to turn back, that we'd gone too far, and to return to base camp. But every day they sent us further into the forest, picking our way through the underbush, 20 kilometers on a good day. Our packs lightened, and our food started to run low. All the water we drank tasted of iodine because we dosed the creek water in case dead zombies upstream poisoned the river. Poisoned zombie water was a popular theory as to how the epidemic managed to spread so quickly. I never walked so much in my life. I wore through the soles of my shoes, and Abe had to stitch these leaves to the rubber to make them comfortable. I smelled horrible, my hair clumping into unbrushable tangles. On the 15th day, we radioed in, saying we were low on food. You have a rifle, they reminded us. Kill something and eat it. Then they told us that we'd walk further than the entire length of Banks. Our country, for all practical purposes, had doubled in size. The service was moving behind us, securing the land, establishing a perimeter. I was further from home than almost any human had been in decades. All the trees we'd picked our way around would be property of Banks Island now. We were doing our country proud, and we'd done it all without killing a single Z. 3 days later, we were surrounded.